The grandfather clock in the Harringtons' foyer struck 8 just as Richard Harrington delivered the final blow. "Let's be honest, Ms. Harper," he said, swirling the whiskey in his crystal glass like he was closing a hostile takeover. "You're a nice enough girl, but you're simply not evergreen material. My son deserves someone from our world." His wife Victoria smiled the way only women who lunch at charity galas can. Thin, practiced, lethal. "Exactly. We were thinking more Princeton, Hamptons, old money, not state school and a starter condo in Charlotte." I felt the diamond on my left hand, the one Ethan had picked out himself in Paris last month, turn into a hot coal. Across the mahogany coffee table sat the leather folder I'd stayed up half the night preparing. My investment portfolio, real estate holdings, the acquisition I'd just led that put my company on the map. They hadn't even glanced at it. My name is Claire Harper, 36, divorced once, amicably, and currently the youngest VP of acquisitions at Sterling and Holt. This is the story of how one dinner turned the Harrington dynasty upside down. Ethan had warned me his parents were traditional. He hadn't mentioned they were vicious. Victoria leaned in, voice dripping honeyed venom. "And darling, at your age, the fertility window is basically a porthole. We do want grandchildren before we're in assisted living." Richard chuckled. "Not to mention your little finance job. Cute, really. But Ethan will inherit a billion-dollar logistics empire. He needs a wife who understands that life, not someone still climbing." I felt Ethan tense beside me. "Dad, stop." "No, son." Richard cut him off. "Some women see a trust fund and pounce. We're just protecting you." That was the moment I stood up, smoothed my dress, and smiled the same smile I use in boardrooms when I'm about to buy a company for pennies on the dollar. "Thank you for dinner," I said calmly. "But I'd rather stay poor than become the kind of people who measure worth by zip codes and bloodlines." Richard's face went scarlet. "How dare you?" "I dare," I said, picking up my untouched folder. "Because unlike you, I earned every cent I have. Enjoy your evening." I walked out with my head high and Ethan right behind me. In the car, he was shaking. Half rage, half shame. "I'm done with them, Claire. I'll sell my shares, walk away, whatever it takes." I squeezed his hand. "Not yet. First, we're making a stop." 30 minutes later, we pulled up to a modest but beautiful house on the outskirts of Raleigh. My dad opened the door in his old Duke hoodie, took one look at my face, and sighed. "Let me guess," he said. "The Harringtons?" Ethan frowned. "Sir?" Dad ushered us in. "Sit down, son. You're about to find out why your father turned white as a sheet when I walked into his office 28 years ago." Turns out my father, Dr. Thomas Harper, retired history professor, wasn't just any teacher. In 1997, a cocky 17-year-old Richie Harrington got expelled for selling fake IDs and stealing from the school fundraiser. The headmaster wanted charges. My dad, young teacher back then, went to bat for him. Pulled strings, got him community service instead of juvenile hall, even tutored him nights so he could graduate. Richie promised he'd never forget it. He forgot the second his first container ship made port. Dad finished the story, then looked at Ethan. "Your daddy told my daughter tonight she's not good enough. I think it's time he remembers who decides what good enough even means." Ethan's eyes went wide. "You want to go back there? Now?" Dad was already grabbing his coat. "Oh, we're going. Richie wanted to see the kind of parents who raised Claire. Let's not keep him waiting." We rolled up to the Harrington estate again just before 10. Richard himself yanked the door open, ready to unleash hell. until he saw my father standing on his front porch in worn loafers and quiet fury. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he'd faint. "Tom," he whispered. "Hello, Richie," Dad said, using the nickname no one had dared in 40 years. "Still looking down on people I pulled out of the gutter?" Victoria appeared behind him. "Richard, who is—" She stopped when she recognized the man whose signature had kept her husband out of jail. Dad didn't raise his voice. He never does. "You sat at my kitchen table crying because your own father wouldn't bail you out. I fought for you. I believed in you. And tonight you told my daughter, my only child, that she's not good enough for your son?" Richard opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Victoria tried. "Professor Harper, we didn't know." "That's the problem," Dad said. "You never ask. You just judge. Same way you judged every scholarship kid at St. Mark's. Only difference is now you've got money to hide behind." He turned to Ethan. "Son, you want to marry my daughter?" "Yes, sir. More than anything." "Then you do it with my blessing. And without a dime of their money, because Claire doesn't need it and you don't either." Ethan looked at his parents. Really looked. And I saw the exact second he was done. "I'm out," he said quietly. "I'll be filing to divest my shares tomorrow. Good luck finding someone else to run the company you keep saying I'm too soft for." Richard actually staggered. "Ethan, you can't—" "I can. And I will." We left them standing speechless in their marble foyer. 4 months later, Ethan launched Harborline Solutions with the seed money he got from selling his shares back to the board at a deliberately painful price. I stayed at Sterling and Holt. Turns out I like my little finance job just fine. The Harringtons showed up to our wedding. Small backyard ceremony, string lights, barbecue. Richard wore a regular suit, no Rolex. Victoria brought homemade banana bread and called me Claire instead of Ms. Harper. They sat in folding chairs and watched their only son marry the woman they once called inadequate. After the toasts, Richard pulled me aside. "I was wrong," he said, voice rough. "About everything. Your father saved me once. You saved my son. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking anyway." I looked over at Dad laughing with Ethan and smiled. "Work on earning it," I said. "Starting with treating every employee like they might be somebody's daughter one day." He nodded, eyes wet. 6 months later, the board asked Richard to step down as chairman after a very public harassment scandal. Funny how people find courage when the heir walks away. Ethan and I still get Christmas cards from the Harringtons. They're signed Love, Mom, and Dad now. Some lessons you can't buy. You have to lose almost everything to finally learn them. And sometimes the quiet girl in the sensible heels you dismissed without a second glance. Turns out she was the one holding all the cards. You just didn't know whose daughter she was.